want to talk about? I want to talk about mobile Linux. Now, A, that's very boring compared to the previous topic. B, this sounds like something that has been talked about a million times before. So why is this interesting? Well, we are at the open source convention, so that's good, because open source is what is really relevant in this context. Now, I work for Intel, and Tim was kind enough to use our registered trademark, copyrighted phrase in his explanation of what data is, and I really appreciate that. But in reality, if people look at Intel, they may not think of open source right away. So last year, I also was here on this stage and talked about open source a little bit, and I hope that by now I don't have to try as hard to get people to believe that we really understand open source and we take open source very seriously. We are doing this not just as Linux enablers, but way beyond that. We do this from tools to applications to the way we run many of our projects, internally and externally. So we have, over the last 6-7 years, really established open source as our internal development methodology. We are using, by the way, one of the larger grids of Linux systems, approaching about 100,000 Linux servers, to develop all of these chips. And open source to us is something that is more than a means to an end. Open source is something that we believe really helps to change the game and really helps to create something that in other ways maybe we couldn't have created. And I think we're not alone in this belief. I mean, the fact that this room is, it's hard with these lights, but I think there are a few people here. It's nice. So there seem to be a lot of people in the industry who believe in open source, and there are a lot of people who kind of like this mantle of open source. It's really nice to be able to claim to do open source, and then, don't look too closely. Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. And it's very interesting to think about all the players who claim open source and then to measure their actions against their claims. So, and this is what I'm going to challenge you to do, because we are claiming that Moblin and Moblin.org is an open source community, and that we want to do mobile Linux in the truly open source way. So what is Moblin about? There are a couple of new classes of devices that are beginning to appear. And please bear with me, new classes of devices means something that other companies thought of 10 years ago is now ready for the mass market. Okay, so we are thinking about, and I forgot to bring it with me, the EEPC, so the netbook, the sub-notebook, but not done with a $2,000 price tag, but with a $300, $400, $500 price tag, hopefully coming down even further. Or even more mobile, the mobile internet device. So something that feels like, I would say, slightly larger than an iPhone, so you have a little more screen real estate, but very much a mobile device that you can take with you anywhere, that has decent battery life, has usually a touch-based interface, might have a hidden keyboard somewhere. But what is common between those two kinds of devices is that they're all about the internet, all about the experience, the ability to interact with the internet. And so when we began working on this idea, one of the first questions you ask yourself as a hardware vendor, hardware without software is a great space heater. So you need to figure out what's going to enable this vision. And there are lots of proprietary ways to doing that, and that is great, and I'm very happy for these companies. But I think to really change the way this all works, to really change the game, you need to do this in a way that gets innovation going and gets people to participate. Now, the fear of data lock-in that Tim has been reminding us of every year for the last, it feels like, 10? 20, 50, I don't know, a very long time, is one thing. But the fear of locking into a platform to me is something that is maybe closer to many of us. So we wanted to do this in a way that does not lock people in, that allows people to innovate and to truly have a platform they can work with. So we said, okay, this needs to be an open source stack. How do you do this? Well, you can go to one of the established open source vendors and say, go, you do it. Which means you just handed the keys to someone else. So a year ago, we started this open source project called Moblin. And we invited people to join us and to work with us on how this vision should look, how the software stack should look, and how people should think of building these new devices. And it was a very interesting experience. You get a certain subset of developers who are willing to play with very new things that physically don't exist, because a year ago we didn't have devices for this, and who are willing to interact with you and provide you feedback. But the one thing that I was sad about is that there wasn't a lot of really open source community developers. It was much more people from companies who were thinking about products to build with this. Now, of course, my hardware friends at Intel would say, are you crazy? This is exactly the people we want to have here. Which is right. I mean, we want people to build products. But who I want to see are the open source developers. I want to see the community who literally takes this project and runs with it and makes it their project, gets involved, tells us where we're wrong, tells us which direction we need to go, tells us how to do this better. Now, I think we got off to a good start in the way we chose what we're doing. So we're not trying to create something entirely new. We're not trying to say, oh, forget all the others, we are different. Because, you know what, it seems to me that there are a lot of mobile Linux initiatives out there. The one thing that I haven't found yet is one that is truly and honestly open source. I mean, for real. Where you have access to the source repositories, where you're able to interact with the key people, where you're not being censored, where you can simply participate and bring in your ideas. So what we're doing right now is we're putting together the software stack for the second instantiation of this, so we call this Moblin 2. It'll be based on very much what is state-of-the-art in the open source community. So we're forking off somewhere in Fedora, we're using the GNOME mobile stack, we're putting together all the components that the open source community has been working on over the last 15 years. And we're going to open this up to the public, and it'll take, I don't know, maybe 3-4 more weeks. We hope to be ready for this conference, which is why we used to have a developer camp yesterday, which we had to cancel because we're just running a little behind. And it's really hard to get people to participate if you don't have your build environment ready yet. So there is a minor snag in this. We are a little late, but I think that's about right for open source. Because you don't release when the conference is, you release when you're ready. So bear with us for another few weeks. We will be ready soon. And the hope that I have, and my good friends who pay my paycheck will hate me for saying this, the hope that I have is that the community takes this from us. That the community comes in and makes it theirs, make it yours. Participate, show us where to go, show us where not to go. Help us to get this right. Now, this is an interesting challenge to give because, of course, we have our corporate goals with this. So today, this is built as, the mobile Linux for the Atom-based devices, which is great, but anybody is welcome to port this to a different platform.